Please subscribe to our channel, Pacific Front Untold, and be sure to leave a comment after watching a video.
The testimonies of John Van Almer, Albert Edward Alsop, and James E. Orrell have illuminated the physical and systemic hardships of Pootung Assembly Camp, from starvation to neglect. Yet the narrative expands further with the accounts of Second Lieutenant Den W. Purns, a military internee, and Floyd Crowder, a film industry representative whose statements reveal the public spectacle of internment and internal tensions among internees. Purns' affidavit, sworn in 1943, recounts the humiliating march through Shanghai's streets and the camp's initial conditions, while referencing a detailed medical report by Dr. George Thorngate. Crowder's interrogation statement exposes the Japanese scrutiny of anti-Japanese propaganda and critiques the preferential treatment of camp representatives, shedding light on the complex dynamics within Pootung. The following affidavit by Second Lieutenant Den W. Purns, recorded in 1943, and the interrogation statement of Floyd Crowder provide a dual perspective on Pootung's early days and the broader context of Japanese control in Shanghai. Purns, who arrived at Pootung after a brief liberation from Santo Tomas, describes the public humiliation of 1,100 internees marched through Shanghai under the gaze of 15,000 onlookers, as well as the camp's decrepit facilities and strict segregation. His reference to Dr. Thorngate's report underscores the dire food and sanitary conditions, while his mention of bridge house interrogations hints at the broader terror faced by some internees. Crowder's statement, detailing his questioning over the anti-Japanese film China Fights Back, reveals the Japanese authorities' paranoia and their manipulation of camp leadership, as seen in the preferential treatment of representatives like William Ryan and Milton Bates. Together, these accounts, presented below, offer a poignant glimpse into the external spectacle and internal frictions that shaped life at Pootung, amplifying the call to preserve this forgotten history. Second Lieutenant Den W. Purns, MAC 02002412, being first duly sworn, deposes and says, "I was in a group of 112 who left Santo Tomas 12 September 1942 and arrived at Shanghai 22 September 1942. We were all liberated immediately upon arrival. A truck was provided to take us to the old American school at No. Dix Avenue, Pétain. I spent much time at the American school until reinterment in February 1943. One building on the campus was used by the Japanese gendarmerie, and I frequently heard screams of both men and women who were apparently being tortured. I believe that no Americans were victims. On 15th February 1943, we were told by the Japanese to assemble at a designated point in Shanghai. The event of our internment had been highly publicized in Shanghai, and about 15,000 Chinese were present to witness the spectacle. 460 American and 640 British internees were ordered to wear large red armbands to designate their nationality, and we were marched through the streets of Shanghai carrying our beds, baggage, and food. We were taken to the British-American Tobacco Company warehouse in Pootung Peninsula. This area was designated by the Japanese as the Pootung Civilian Assembly Center. The camp embraced approximately 3 buildings of brick construction, all very decrepit, but kept reasonably warm. At the start, we were provided only 2 toilets for each 300 or 400 internees. This condition was later alleviated. The Japanese provided neither beds or bedding. The number of internees averaged about 1,100. The Americans and British were segregated and maintained separate quarters in the concentration camp, although we were permitted to mingle during the day. There were no women in this camp. Internees were ordered to designate the men they wished to represent them with the Japanese for the actions of their respective nationals. Roll calls were held twice a day, and it was the threat of the Japanese that the Americans and British men in charge of the various rooms and buildings would be subject to death in the event of an escape from their representative areas. Food and sanitary conditions in the camp are thoroughly covered in the attached 3-page statement written by Dr. George Thorngate of Alfred, New York, a well-established practitioner in pre-war Shanghai who is now in the United States since his repatriation in December 1943. There were several tortures in the compound, but none involved American or British nationals. For interrogation purposes, it seemed to be the policy to remove internees of Pootung and take them to Bridge House. Mr. Tsuchiya of the Japanese Diplomatic Police Agency was the commandant at Pootung. We left Pootung in September 1943 for India on the Taya Mori. We returned to the United States aboard the Gripsholm. Interrogation of Mr. Floyd Crowder Assembly Center. Mr. Crowder stated that he was questioned by Lieutenant Inoue of the Japanese Inval Intelligence at Japanese Naval Intelligence Headquarters in the Cathay Hotel sometime in January 1942. The questioning was in connection with the concealing of a cinema film entitled China Fights Back. This film was released by the RKO Film Company, of which Mr. Crowder is the representative in Shanghai. It was largely anti-Japanese propaganda. The film was discovered by the Japanese when they investigated the records of the 915 Club, an organization which showed banned pictures previous to the outbreak of hostilities. Mr. Crowder was questioned as to his reasons for bringing the film to Shanghai, if the film was distributed in other countries, if the film was brought to Shanghai for propaganda purposes, who made the film, and if the makers of the film were connected with the U.S. government. The film was returned to Mr. Crowder after he had been questioned for 3 days and was once again concealed by him. The film has subsequently been recovered and shown. Mr. Crowder also stated that the American and British representatives of Pootung Civil Assembly Center received preferential treatment from the Japanese and were consequently not very strenuous in their attempts to improve camp conditions for fear of jeopardizing their own position. The first American representative, Mr. William Ryan, was allowed by the Japanese to visit Shanghai several times. In addition, he did not draw his food from the general mess, but received special and better food from the camp kitchen. Mr. Milton Bays, the second American representative, was allowed to visit Shanghai frequently, i.e., about once a month. On their visits to Shanghai, both Mr. Ryan and Mr. Bays were allowed to purchase such things as they had money to buy. Both Mr. Ryan and Mr. Bays were appointed representative by the Japanese commandant, who refused to allow the Pootung internees to elect who they might choose. At one time, the food being very poor in quality as well as small in quantity, Mr. Crowder approached Mr. Bays with the suggestion that he resign as representative in order that he might be replaced by someone who would press the matter of rations more strongly with the Japanese. Mr. Bates suggested that Mr. Crowder accompany him to the Japanese commandant, and they would both discuss the matter of rations with him. During the interview with the Japanese commandant, Mr. Gadsby, the British representative, who was also present, repeatedly sided with the Japanese in regards to the food question, constantly averring that the food was sufficient and that Mr. Crowder's attitude was unreasonable. See attached letter of Mr. Crowder. As a result, no improvement in rationing took place.